The Austrian Grand Prix was anything but ordinary, especially towards the end when Norris and Verstappen were locked in a nail-biting battle for victory. Verstappen, refusing to back down, ended up causing Norris to crash out and himself dropping to 5th place, where he finished. Despite the chaos, Verstappen managed to go out as a winner and add 10 points to his lead over both Norris and Leclerc. This aggressive racing move by Verstappen is sure to spark some heated discussions by Norris. With competition tighter than ever, it makes you wonder, will we see more incidents like this in the future? The race didn't start off with much excitement as Verstappen quickly built a solid lead from the very first lap, making it seem like his 60-second career win was a done deal. However, after the first stint on medium tires, problems started to arise for the 3-time world champion. He reported performance issues with the hard tires, yet managed to maintain about an 8-second lead over Norris. The real turning point was the third and final stint, where Norris had the upper hand with a fresh set of medium tires. Verstappen, on the other hand, faced a slightly delayed pit stop due to a stuck rear tire. This set the stage for some thrilling action between the two. Despite Norris pushing hard to overtake Verstappen, the Dutchman's racecraft proved to be nearly invincible, even with his slightly worn tires. It was a showcase of skill and strategy, making it a race to remember. At lap 64, Norris made a bold move on the outside of turn 2, where he had earlier gone too wide and had to give up his position, showing good sportsmanship. Verstappen, however, didn't show the same courtesy when he did a similar move in this fiercely competitive race. As the race reached lap 64, Verstappen made a controversial move during braking, something he had been doing repeatedly to defend against Norris. This forced Norris to be extra cautious entering corners, causing him to lose valuable time that he needed to regain using DRS. On lap 64, both drivers ended up off the track, damaging their cars. Although it initially seemed that Verstappen's car had taken more damage due to a visible puncture on his rear right tire, Norris also sustained serious damage. When Norris tried to overtake Verstappen on the straight afterward, Verstappen shut the door and forced him onto the grass. Both drivers had to pit, but Norris's damage was terminal. His frustration was evident in the pit stop, and it was clear he wouldn't forget this incident for the rest of the 2024 season. Verstappen's action of pushing a slower Norris onto the grass was seen as childish and immature, especially for someone who has won 61 races. He seemed unable to accept that he couldn't defend his position this time, as McLaren and Norris had the upper hand. The biggest loser of the Austrian Grand Prix was undoubtedly Norris. It's Lando Norris we're talking about. Even though he didn't manage to beat Verstappen, he would have only fallen behind by 6 points in the championship standings instead of the 10 points he's down now. However, if he had won, which he had a real shot at doing, he would have reduced the gap to 62 points from the 69 before the Austrian Grand Prix. Plus, it would have sent a strong message to the entire F1 world. Just because you're behind for most of the race doesn't mean you'll lose. The race isn't over until it's truly over. Now, it's clear that Lando isn't going to worry about Verstappen or how he races against him, especially since Max has shown his true colors again. When briefly discussing the incident with Max, Norris mentioned, "If Max says he did nothing wrong, I'll lose a lot of respect." Sure, if Max Verstappen hadn't had such a slow pit stop, allowing Norris to gain over 3 seconds, we probably wouldn't be discussing this right now. But hey, that's racing for you. Unexpected stuff happens all the time. The important thing is that once the race is on, it needs to be done right. While Verstappen insists he did nothing wrong, many people are saying his aggressive driving reminded them of how he was back in 2021, when he didn't seem to care about damaging other cars, or even his own, as long as he was in the lead. After the race, Verstappen vented his frustration over the team radio, saying, "Of course I got a 10-second penalty. Yeah, sure, you can't just make sudden moves left and right. What do you want me to do next?" Max asked his race engineer, Lambias. In response, Lambias said, "Norris didn't act properly there, Max. It's really unlucky, especially here, but you gave it your all." This situation raises questions about Red Bull's tactics, especially since it was clear Max was moving while braking multiple times. McLaren reported these actions repeatedly over the radio, but Red Bull didn't address the issue even after damage was done to the car. Despite this, Max managed to continue racing and now leads Norris by 79 points in the Drivers' Championship. However, it's clear that such aggressive racing might become more common in the future, especially if McLaren improves their speed on tracks that previously didn't suit them. Last year in Austria, the team rolled out upgrades that helped them secure a podium finish with Norris. However, this time around, they weren't too optimistic about challenging Max. This was mainly because the gap in qualifying was larger than in recent races, 0.4 to be exact. Yet, various factors played into the Austrian Grand Prix. For starters, Red Bull had an unusually slow pit stop, and Verstappen wasn't entirely happy with his car, especially on the hard tires. He began losing time to Norris even before they got bunched up again after the pit stop mess. Verstappen mentioned this issue to his engineer, showing his frustration. In the end, he still came out on top, especially since the drivers in second and third place in the championship standings didn't score any points. But when it comes to Verstappen, anything short of perfect doesn't quite match his high standards. When discussing the rest of the season, Verstappen admitted, "Honestly, the race itself was just bad. I need to improve, but that's how it goes." People are questioning the stewards too, wondering if they could have prevented the fierce racing early on. For instance, should Max have been penalized for moving under braking and not giving back the position when Norris was ahead at turn 2? Interestingly, a similar situation happened between Hamilton and Sainz earlier in the race, where Hamilton had to return the position to avoid a penalty. Moreover, this isn't the first time Verstappen has been under scrutiny from the FIA, but escaped penalties, like when he drove unnecessarily slow in the pit lane on Saturday. This raises questions about whether the governing body is showing favoritism towards the three-time world champion. We need to be fair and mention Norris's 5-second penalty that ruined any hope of a late race battle. With just 4 to 5 laps left, there was no way for the Brit to overtake Verstappen and gain a 5-second lead, especially since he got the black and white flag for multiple track violations while chasing the Red Bull driver. Even so, Mercedes benefited heavily from the competitive racing, earning 37 points and gradually closing in on the top 3 in the championship. This gain comes as Leclerc and Ferrari suffered another poor race due to a lap 1 incident with Piastri. Given all this, do you think Verstappen was to blame for the collision with Norris? Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. See you in the next video.